Welcome to this episode of Pathway to Profit with the two Gregs. Once again, thank you for joining me this week.
No problem at all, Greg.
So I had a really interesting thing happen to me earlier this week that I thought would be quite useful to kind of discuss with you and kind of give our thoughts on. Because obviously everyone knows that getting an electric car is really beneficial if you're a business owner. But it's a real minefield to navigate, I'll tell you. I mean,
okay, so it's interesting, right? We did a little while ago, we did a podcast around the budget, and we saw kind of the effect of that and everything that was happening in the economy. And I just wonder, if you're a business owner, you got to be thinking to yourself, so what do I do? How do I kind of make this economy and the rules work for me, right? Because a lot of the gaps, or whatever you want to call it, have been closed by the government over recent time. But as you quite rightly said, I think electric cars is kind of I think it's not quite as good, because aren't the rules changing a little bit?
Yeah, they are. Every year it gets slightly worse for people. So in the past it was you didn't have the benefit in kind at all. It's slowly becoming there is a small benefit in kind. It's still a very efficient way of doing things at the moment, though. As the government is trying to encourage more and more electric car owners. So as they get closer to their goals, the benefits are likely to be reduced.
Where did you go? What did you do? Tell me about it.
So I went to there's a local BMW garage, and I just spoke to them, and when I went, I know all the rules. I was there with a couple of other accountants, and they know all the rules too, but it was still, you kind of, when HMRC give it to you, they give it to you the rules in very specific language, and you come to realize when you do the actual purchase, when you go to look at purchasing one, the language that they use can very much confuse you, because you hear those buzzwords and you're like, oh, that's what I'm looking for. But then when you dig a bit deeper, you then start to think, well, actually, it doesn't quite fit the rules as HMRC has laid out, which it was you can see how clients get very confused by it.
So you as an accountant found it confusing, right? I mean, that's
absolutely. It was all these things, and you hear these like, oh, it's a higher purchase, and you go in and you're like, but but the rules aren't saying it's a very confusing.
Tell me just quick overview. I mean, obviously rules change, right? So as of the date of this podcast, it's correct, and it'll be wrong, whenever. But as of today, so what are the kind of current rules? And like, if I wanted a car, what should I be looking for?
So to be honest, the real thing is that it's about, because this is all about capital allowances, which, to not bore people too much with it, is basically a reduction in your corporation tax overall. And so the basic rule is that it's about the perceived ownership of the vehicle. That's the key point. So it's the optics of the agreement. So obviously, if you buy a vehicle, you purchase that vehicle in its entirety, that's completely yours to do as you like. But then you get these other agreements, which are kind of intermediaries, where you're not quite renting the vehicle, but you've got an agreement in place where you're paying a certain amount every month for use of the vehicle, with the optics at the end of, after likely a payment, a one-off bigger payment, you'll then get purchase of the vehicle.
That sounds like what I have, right? So like when I buy a car, I buy it personally, because I'm still petrol and it's not a benefit in a company. And I go for a PCP. And so I have it I kind of choose 2-3 years or whatever, and how frequently I want to change my car. And then there's a balloon payment at the end, and either there's some equity in it, or usually there's a small gap, but then they eat the gap. I have to stick to some mileage rules, or if I go over, I have some penalties. Would that qualify?
So it's all about it. The fact that you have a bigger payment at the end isn't necessarily an issue. It's all about, does that payment at the end is it more or less than the expected market value of the car when it comes to that payment? So if you have a balloon payment of 40,000 at the end of your agreement, but the car's only worth 30,000, you're less likely to take that option because it's not beneficial to you. You're likely just to hand the keys back. Therefore, from HMRC's point of view, you're not going to own the car. So it's treated like a rental. On the other hand, if you have a payment of 20,000, but the expected value is going to be 30,000, well, that's beneficial. You've got a smaller payment than the car's worth. You're more likely to take that up. So even though legally you're looking at what it would be looks like more of a rental, from a financial point of view, the chances are you're going to own that car at the end of the agreement. So that one would be treated as owned, and so would be allowable as long as the car. So one thing to say is there are obviously rules around the type of car you're buying. So it needs to be under. It doesn't necessarily need to be electric. It needs to be under. It's 50 grams per of CO2 is the key.
I don't think you have to get into that. I mean, I'm not gonna. I'm not going to.
No, I know, but it's just for people doing it. It's easy to think it's electrics and most hybrids, but from a
just out of curiosity, did like the sales team, did they know a lot about it, a little bit about it?
No, I mean they obviously knew. They knew very surface level things, and they kind of knew. Again, like most people, they knew the buzzwords, so they were. But the problem is the agreements are written in ways that the buzzwords can get confusing, because at the top it will say hire purchase, but then on the line below it will say PCP.
Okay.
And so technically you look at it and you're like, oh, this is a hire purchase agreement. They're saying it's a hire purchase agreement, but actually the balloon payment at the end doesn't make it a hire purchase agreement. It makes it it's a PCP. And thus, they don't truly know. I mean, they some of them know more than others, obviously, and I'm not able to speak for every salesperson of cars, but from what my experience of it, they didn't.
I mean, just to summarize what you said, so your experience, they're very helpful. They kind of knew the rules, but ultimately you leaned on the fact that you're an accountant to kind of clarify that. And right now, it's maybe a good play for people to do. So I know you're going to be writing a blog to go on, pathwaytoprofit.uk. And I guess that's going to have some examples or outline the rules. And, so people really interested, they could go seek out that blog and read the detail, right? Because let's face it, they're not going to take the notes from this. But that's interesting. Anything else like that that was interesting to you, or?
It just kind of really opened my eyes to the fact, like, obviously I'm an accountant, I know the rules, but if I was doing it and I wasn't an accountant, my first step would always be to try and learn the rules from my accountant or somebody else. If, for example, at my job, we have a lot of guidance notes and stuff on this thing to help our clients when they need it.
Okay.
I would say that's a key first step, to just try and make sure you know what you're looking for, and don't just rush into something. Talk it through, make sure it's the right thing before you come into the agreement and sign it on the dotted line.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. So look, I'm certainly going to read your blog, and it's interesting. And I think, maybe at a later stage, who knows when, but maybe we try and get the garage that you were talking to, maybe even on this, and talk to them a little bit, see if there's, something that they can share about it. But in the meantime, I'm really looking forward to reading your blog. I think we've pretty much covered the topic, unless there's anything else that you want to add to it.
I could talk about this for hours, but I will bore people if I go into any more depth. So I think we should keep it at this level, and then people can read further if they are in thinking of it or interested in it.
Cool. Okay. Well, let's call it a day. I'll let you close this out.
No, but thank you for coming in and talking about this with me and taking your time out of your day. And thank you to everyone who's watching. Please like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments if there's anything you feel we can improve. And we always welcome constructive criticism.
Yeah, please like, share, subscribe, and get others to watch. You know, be kind. You know, do nice. So yeah, thanks very much. And hey, great to see you, Greg. Thanks a lot.
Great to see you too.
See you later. Okay.
Bye.